I was staring at the deployment dashboard when I saw it. My name was gone. The release checklist for version 4.2, the product overhaul I'd architected for 9 months, listed Bryce Kellerman as the sole approver. Not Alina Reeves and Bryce Kellerman. Not platform team. Just him. I refreshed the page twice. The result didn't change. Bryce had been at Pointway Technologies for 6 weeks. I'd been there for 4 years. I was the senior platform engineer. He was the newly hired infrastructure lead, brought in during our growth phase when Claire Donovan, our CTO, decided we needed fresh perspectives on scalability. I opened the edit history. Claire had made the change herself. 30 minutes ago. No email. No Slack message. No meeting invite to discuss. I walked to her office. She was on a call but waved me in. I waited by the door. When she hung up, she looked at me with that expression I'd learned to recognize, the one that meant she'd already made up her mind and was simply waiting for me to accept it. I saw the checklist change, I said. Yes. I'm streamlining the approval process for this release. Bryce will handle the final sign-off. I architected this release. I've been managing every stage of development since March. I understand. But Bryce has experience with large-scale infrastructure projects from his time at his previous company. I trust his judgment on production readiness more than yours at this stage. She said it plainly. Factually. As if she were describing the weather. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I nodded once and left. Back at my desk, I opened my records. I had organized everything from the beginning because that's what you do when you're responsible for a system that processes 6 million transactions daily. I had folders for architecture decisions, testing protocols, deployment procedures, incident response plans, and rollback strategies. I had written the initial proposal in March. 14 pages. Claire had approved it in one meeting. I had conducted 63 technical design sessions with the engineering team between March and November. I had personally coded the migration scripts for the database schema changes. 47 scripts. I'd tested each one in staging 17 times under different load conditions. I had created the deployment runbook. 92 pages. It covered every step of the release process, every potential failure point, every rollback procedure. I had run the disaster recovery drills. For full simulations. I'd documented every outcome. Bryce had attended 3 meetings total. He'd contributed feedback on server provisioning and made a suggestion about log aggregation that I'd already implemented 2 months prior. Now he was the sole approver. I opened a new folder on my drive. I labeled it 4.2 Documentation Archive. I copied every email thread, every design document, every test result, every runbook section, every meeting note. I exported my commit history from the repository. I saved my Slack messages where I'd explained technical decisions to the team. I didn't send anything to anyone. I just saved it all. The release was scheduled for Friday night. Today was Tuesday. That afternoon, I received a message from Ian Porter, the VP of Engineering at Halcyon Systems. Halcyon was our largest enterprise client. They'd signed a 3-year contract worth $42 million specifically because of the features in version 4.2. The message was short. Alina, I just got the updated release contact list from Pointway. Your name isn't on it anymore. What's going on? You've been our point of contact for technical assurance since we started the contract negotiations. I read it twice. Ian and I had been working together for 11 months. He'd called me directly during the contract discussions to verify that our platform could handle their projected load. I'd walked him through the architecture. I'd answered his security team's questions. I'd given him my personal cell number for escalations. I replied carefully. Ian, Claire made an organizational change. Bryce Kellerman is now the primary contact for release approvals. He's our infrastructure lead. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. We signed the contract based on your technical credibility. Does Bryce have the same depth of knowledge about the 4.2 release? I paused before typing. Bryce has experience with infrastructure scaling. I built the 4.2 architecture and led the development process. The deployment runbook I shared with your team in October reflects my work. I see. The dots appeared one more time. I'll need to discuss this with Claire. I didn't reply. 15 minutes later, Claire appeared at my desk. Ian Porter just called me. He's concerned about the release contact change. I need you to send him a message confirming that you support the decision and that Bryce is fully capable of managing the release. I looked at her. I can confirm that Bryce is the listed approver. I cannot confirm that I support the decision. Her jaw tightened. Alina, this is not helpful. We have a major client who needs reassurance. I'm asking you to be a team player. I've been a team player for 9 months. I wrote the runbook Ian's team reviewed. I designed the system they're paying for. If he wants reassurance, he can review the documentation I created. I'm not asking you to lie. I'm asking you to support the organizational decision. I'll answer any technical questions Ian has. I won't endorse removing myself from oversight of a system I designed. She stared at me for a long moment. Fine. But if this affects the client relationship, I will hold you accountable. She walked away. I went back to my terminal. That evening, Ian sent another message. Alina, can we schedule a call tomorrow? I want to walk through the rollback procedures one more time. Our executive team is nervous about the deployment window. I replied immediately. I'm available tomorrow at 2 p.m. The call happened as scheduled. Ian was on the line with 2 members of his infrastructure team. Alina, walk us through the rollback plan if something goes wrong during the release. I shared my screen. I opened the runbook section labeled Emergency Rollback Procedures. If we detect a critical failure within the first 30 minutes, we execute a database snapshot restore and redeploy version 4.1. I've automated the rollback scripts. The process takes 12 minutes if triggered immediately. Who monitors the health checks during deployment? I built a monitoring dashboard that tracks 47 metrics in real time. Database transaction rates, API response times, error rates by endpoint, memory utilization across the service cluster. I've set threshold alerts that trigger automatically. And who will be watching this dashboard on Friday night? I paused. That's a question for Claire or Bryce. Ian's tone shifted. You're not going to be on the deployment call? I haven't been invited to the deployment call. Silence on the line. I see. And does Bryce know how to execute these rollback scripts? I documented every step in the runbook. If he follows the procedures, the rollback will work. If he follows the procedures. Yes. Ian exhaled audibly. Alina, I need to be direct. We paid $42 million because we trust your engineering. If you're not on that deployment call, I'm not comfortable proceeding with the release. That's a decision you'll need to communicate to Claire. I will. The call ended. 10 minutes later, Claire messaged me. Conference room. Now. I walked to the conference room. Claire was there with Bryce. He looked confused. Claire's face was tight. Ian Porter just told me he won't approve the release unless you're on the deployment call. What did you say to him? He asked me technical questions about the rollback procedures. I answered them. Did you tell him you weren't going to be on the call? He asked who would be monitoring the deployment. I told him I hadn't been invited. You should have told him that the deployment was under control. I don't have information about whether the deployment is under control. I'm not on the checklist. Bryce spoke for the first time. I've reviewed the runbook. I can handle the deployment. Claire nodded at him, then looked back at me. Alina, you're going to be on the deployment call. But Bryce is still the final approver. You'll be there in a support capacity. Understood. I returned to my desk. Wednesday morning, I received the calendar invite for the deployment call. Friday, 9 p.m. 4 hours blocked. I reviewed the runbook one more time. I checked every script. I verified every monitoring threshold. I tested the rollback automation in the staging environment. Everything worked. Thursday afternoon, Bryce stopped by my desk. Hey, I wanted to touch base before tomorrow night. Claire mentioned you have concerns about the deployment. I don't have concerns about the deployment. I have concerns about the approval process. Right. Look, I know you put a lot of work into this. I respect that. But Claire brought me in to provide oversight on infrastructure decisions. That's my role. I understand your role. Good. So tomorrow night, I'll need you to defer to my judgment if any issues come up. If issues come up, I'll provide the technical information needed to resolve them. You can make whatever decisions you want based on that information. He frowned. Claire said you'd be supportive. I'll be accurate. That's more useful than supportive. He walked away. Friday arrived. At 8 p.m., I logged into the deployment call. Claire, Bryce, and 4 other engineers were already on the line. Claire opened the call. Everyone's clear on roles. Bryce has final go/no-go authority. Alina is here to answer technical questions. Let's begin the pre-deployment checklist. We ran through the steps. Database backups verified. Service health nominal. Traffic routing prepared. Monitoring dashboards active. At 9:14 p.m., Bryce gave the authorization. Deploy version 4.2. I executed the deployment scripts. The first 15 minutes were clean. All health checks green. Transaction processing normal. API response times within expected ranges. At 9:32 p.m., the first alert triggered. Database connection pool saturation. Services were queuing requests. I checked the metrics. We're seeing connection pool exhaustion on the primary database cluster. This is expected during the initial traffic spike. It should stabilize within 90 seconds as the connection rebalancing completes. Bryce's voice came through tense. Should we roll back? No. This is normal behavior. It's documented in Section 7 of the runbook. But the error rate is climbing. It's climbing from 0.03% to 0.12%. That's within acceptable thresholds for a release transition. The runbook specifies rollback triggers at 2% error rate sustained for 5 minutes. I don't like the trajectory. The trajectory is consistent with every staging test we ran. Give it 2 more minutes. I watched the dashboard. 90 seconds later, the connection pool stabilized. Error rate dropped back to 0.04%. Nominal, I said. Bryce exhaled. Okay. Continuing. At 10:07 p.m., the second alert triggered. Memory utilization spiking on the cache cluster. I checked the graphs. Cache warming is occurring faster than predicted. We're at 82% memory utilization. The runbook specifies monitoring this closely but not acting unless we hit 95%. Bryce cut in. 82% is too close. We should add cache nodes now. Adding cache nodes mid-deployment will trigger a rebalancing event that could destabilize the cluster. The current utilization is safe. If we hit 90%, we can add nodes then. I'm not comfortable waiting. Waiting is the correct technical decision. Claire's voice entered the call. Bryce, what's your call? He hesitated. Add the cache nodes. I didn't argue. I executed the command to provision additional cache nodes. The rebalancing began. For 6 minutes, cache hit rates dropped as data redistributed across the new nodes. API response times increased by 40%. Error rates climbed to 1.3%. Then the rebalancing completed. Metrics returned to normal. Bryce sounded relieved. See? Adding the nodes worked. I didn't respond. At 11:18 p.m., the third alert triggered. Database replication lag detected. I checked the replication metrics. We have a 2-second replication lag on the read replicas. This is caused by the increased write volume from the cache rebalancing. It's temporary and will resolve as the write spike subsides. Bryce's voice was sharp now. 2 seconds is unacceptable. Our SLA guarantees sub-second replication lag. Our SLA guarantees eventual consistency within 5 seconds for read replicas. 2-second lag is within SLA. I want to reduce the lag now. Can we throttle write traffic? Throttling write traffic will delay the cache rebalancing and extend the window of elevated error rates. The replication lag will resolve on its own in approximately 4 minutes based on current write velocity. I'm not willing to wait 4 minutes. Throttle the writes. I paused. That will extend the deployment window and increase risk. I recommend against it. I'm the approver. Throttle the writes. I enabled write throttling. the cache rebalancing slowed. Replication lag decreased to 1.1 seconds. But API response times increased again as write requests queued. Error rates climbed to 1.8%. At 11:41 p.m., the error rate hit 2.1%. Claire's voice was tight. "Bryce, we're at rollback threshold." Bryce didn't respond immediately. "Alina, what's causing the error rate increase?" "Write throttling. The cache rebalancing is incomplete, so cache misses are elevated. Throttled writes are causing request timeouts. If we remove the write throttle, the rebalancing will complete and error rates will drop. But replication lag will increase again. Temporarily. It's the correct trade-off." Bryce was silent for 5 seconds. "Remove the write throttle." I disabled write throttling. Write velocity increased. Cache rebalancing accelerated. Replication lag spiked to 3.2 seconds, then began dropping. Error rates plateaued at 2.3%. At 11:59 p.m., the error rate was still at 2.2%. Claire's voice was strained. "Bryce, we've been at rollback threshold for 18 minutes. What's your decision?" "Alina, will the error rate drop if we wait longer?" "The cache rebalancing is 91% complete. When it finishes, error rates should drop below 1%. That should happen within the next 6 minutes based on current progress." "Should or will?" "Will, barring an unexpected failure." "How confident are you?" "I've tested this scenario 17 times in staging. It behaved this way every time." Bryce was quiet. "Okay. We wait." At 12:04 a.m., the cache rebalancing completed. Error rates dropped to 0.8%. API response times returned to baseline. All metrics green. Bryce's voice was shaky. "Deployment successful. Version 4.2 is live." Everyone on the call exhaled. Claire spoke. "Good work, everyone. Alina, thank you for the support. Bryce, well managed." The call ended. I sat at my desk staring at the monitoring dashboard. The deployment had taken 4 hours and 51 minutes. According to the runbook, it should have taken 2 hours and 40 minutes. The extended timeline was entirely due to Bryce's decisions. I saved the deployment logs. I exported the metric graphs. I documented the timeline of decisions and outcomes. Then I went home. Saturday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Claire. I called her back. "Alina, we have a critical situation. I need you online immediately." I opened my laptop. "What's the situation?" "Ian Porter just notified me that Halcyon is seeing intermittent data inconsistencies in their reporting system. They're threatening to invoke the contract penalty clause if we don't resolve it within 4 hours." I pulled up the production metrics. Everything looked normal. "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Transaction totals not matching between their real-time dashboard and their nightly reconciliation reports. They're seeing discrepancies of up to 3%. I checked the database replication metrics. Replication lag was at 0.2 seconds. Well within SLA. Then I checked the read replica promotion logs. My stomach dropped. "Claire, did someone promote a read replica to primary during the deployment?" "I don't know." "Why?" "Because there's a log entry showing that replica 3 was promoted to primary at 11:47 p.m. last night." "Is that a problem?" "It's a massive problem if the promotion happened while replication lag was elevated. Any data written to the original primary during the lag window wouldn't have been replicated to replica 3 before it became the new primary. That data would be orphaned." Claire's voice went cold. "Can you recover the orphaned data?" "Possibly. But I need to understand why the replica was promoted." "Who authorized that?" "I'll find out." "Can you start the recovery process?" "I need access to the primary database cluster." I was removed from the deployment checklist, so my access credentials might have been revoked. Silence. "Your access is still active. Start the recovery. I'll call you back." I began investigating. The replica promotion had been triggered manually. The command had come from Bryce's account. I checked the deployment call logs. At 11:47 p.m., Bryce had been silent on the call. No one had discussed promoting a replica. I reviewed the runbook section on replica promotion. It was labeled emergency procedures only. The instructions were explicit. Never promote a replica if replication lag exceeds 1 second. Always verify data consistency before promotion. At 11:47 p.m., replication lag had been 3.2 seconds. I opened the database transaction logs and began reconstructing the orphan data. It took me 90 minutes. I identified 214 transactions that had been written to the original primary but never replicated to replica 3 before promotion. I manually reconciled them against Halcyon's source systems and replayed them into the current primary. At 2:43 p.m., I verified data consistency. The discrepancies were resolved. I sent a message to Claire. Data recovery complete. Halcyon's reports should reconcile correctly now. She called me immediately. Walk me through what happened. I explained the replica promotion. The replication lag. The orphan transactions. Why was the replica promoted? I don't know. The command came from Bryce's account. I wasn't consulted before it happened. Bryce told me he promoted the replica because he was concerned about database performance degradation. There was no performance degradation that required replica promotion. Promoting during elevated replication lag violates the procedure I documented. Claire was silent for a moment. I'm going to talk to Bryce. Stand by. 30 minutes later, she called back. Bryce said he saw high memory utilization on the primary database and decided to promote a replica to reduce load. That doesn't make sense. Memory utilization was normal. And promoting a replica doesn't reduce load on the original primary. It just shifts traffic to a different server. He said he was following his experience from his previous company. His experience doesn't override the documented procedures for this system. Claire's tone shifted. Alina, I need you to understand something. Bryce made a judgment call under pressure. He was trying to protect the system. The fact that it caused a problem doesn't mean his intent was wrong. Intent doesn't matter when the outcome is data corruption. It wasn't corruption. You recovered the data. I recovered the data because I designed the system with enough redundancy to make recovery possible. If I hadn't built those safeguards, we would have lost customer data permanently. But we didn't lose it. I didn't respond. Claire continued. I'm going to send an incident report to Ian explaining that we experienced a technical issue during deployment and that it's been resolved. I need you to review the report before I send it. She emailed me the draft. I read it. It described the incident as an unexpected database synchronization delay during the version 4.2 deployment that was quickly identified and resolved by the Pointway engineering team. It didn't mention the replica promotion. It didn't mention replication lag. It didn't mention that the issue was caused by a manual intervention that violated documented procedures. I replied to Claire. This report is inaccurate. The incident was not caused by an unexpected delay. It was caused by a replica promotion that occurred during elevated replication lag in violation of the deployment runbook. Claire called me. Alina, I can't send Ian a report that blames Bryce by name. That will damage our credibility and his confidence in our leadership. Then send him an accurate technical explanation without naming individuals. But don't call it unexpected when it was directly caused by a documented procedure violation. You're being unreasonable. I'm being accurate. She hung up. I didn't hear from her for the rest of the day. Sunday morning, Ian Porter sent me a direct message. Alina, thank you for resolving the data issue yesterday. Can you send me the technical root cause analysis when it's ready? I need to report to our executive team on Monday. I drafted a technical summary. I described the replica promotion. The replication lag. The recovery process. I didn't name Bryce. I described the incident in terms of procedural deviations and technical outcomes. I sent it to Ian. He replied 10 minutes later. This is very different from the explanation Claire sent me. She described it as a synchronization delay. You're describing a manual intervention during a known high-risk state. Which version is correct? I paused before responding. My summary reflects the technical facts as recorded in the system logs. I can provide you with the raw logs if you want to verify independently. Please send them. I sent the logs. Ian didn't reply immediately. Monday morning, I received a meeting invitation from Claire. The subject line was urgent, halcyon situation. I joined the call. Claire was on the line with Bryce and our CEO, Stephen Cho. Stephen spoke first. Alina, Ian Porter has informed me that there's a discrepancy between the incident report Claire provided and the technical analysis you sent him. I need to understand what happened. I walked through the timeline. The deployment. The replica promotion. The replication lag. The orphan data. Stephen listened without interrupting. When I finished, he turned to Bryce. Bryce, why did you promote the replica? Bryce's voice was defensive. I saw elevated memory utilization and made a decision to shift traffic to a healthier node. It was a judgment call during a high-pressure situation. Did you check replication lag before promoting? I don't recall checking that specific metric. The runbook specifies checking replication lag before any replica promotion. Did you consult the runbook? I was relying on my operational experience. Stephen's tone hardened. Your operational experience doesn't override documented procedures for a client-critical system. Alina, was the replica promotion necessary? No. There was no performance issue that required it. The memory utilization Bryce mentioned was within normal operating parameters. Stephen was quiet for a moment. Claire, why did your incident report describe this as an unexpected synchronization delay instead of a procedural violation? Claire's voice was strained. I was trying to present the incident in a way that maintained client confidence. By misrepresenting the facts? By framing the issue in a way that focused on resolution rather than blame. Ian Porter now believes we deliberately misled him. He's questioning whether he can trust our engineering team. That's the opposite of maintaining confidence. Silence. Stephen continued. Alina, Ian has requested that you be his primary technical contact going forward. He's also requested that any future deployments affecting Halcyon systems require your explicit approval. Are you willing to take on that responsibility? Yes. Good. Claire, I want a full incident review completed by end of week. Include the technical timeline, the procedural violations, and recommendations for preventing this in the future. Alina will lead the review. You and Bryce will support her. The call ended. I spent the week documenting everything. Every decision point during the deployment. Every deviation from the runbook. Every communication with Ian. I included recommendations. Mandatory runbook adherence. Multi-approver requirements for high-risk changes. Automated safeguards to prevent replica promotion during replication lag. I sent the report to Stephen on Friday. He replied within an hour. Excellent work. I'm implementing all of your recommendations. I'd also like to discuss your role at Pointway. Can we schedule time next week? We met on Tuesday. Stephen opened directly. Alina, Claire has been with Pointway for 8 years. She's built the engineering team from the ground up. But the Halcyon incident exposed a gap in her technical judgment. I need someone who can provide a check on strategic technical decisions. I'm creating a new role, principal architect. You'd report directly to me and have authority to review and approve all major system changes. Are you interested? I considered it. What would Claire's reaction be? Claire will adjust. She understands that the company needs stronger technical leadership. Will I have actual authority, or will this be a performative role? You'll have binding veto authority on any deployment that affects customer-facing systems. If you say no, it doesn't happen. I nodded. I'm interested. Good. I'll announce it Friday. The announcement went out to the engineering team. My title changed. My salary increased by 40%. Claire didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Bryce left Pointway 6 weeks later. He accepted a role at a smaller company. Before he left, he stopped by my desk. I know you think I screwed up. But I was trying to do the right thing. I looked at him. I know you were. But the right thing in infrastructure is following the documented procedures, not improvising under pressure. That's why the procedures exist. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. He left. I didn't see him again. 3 months later, Ian Porter sent me a message. Alina, I'm leaving Halcyon. I've accepted a CTO role at Garrison Analytics. We're building a real-time financial data platform. We need a principal architect to lead the infrastructure design. Interested in talking? I scheduled the call. Ian explained the role. Garrison was a Series B startup. They'd raised $60 million. They were building a system to process financial market data at scale. They needed someone who could design it correctly from the beginning. The offer was clear. Principal architect. Equity stake. Full authority over technical decisions. The salary was double what I was making at Pointway. I accepted. I gave Pointway 4 weeks' notice. Claire called me into her office when she received my resignation. You're leaving because of the checklist incident, aren't you? I'm leaving because I received a better offer. If I hadn't removed you from the checklist, would you still be leaving? I considered the question. If you hadn't removed me from the checklist, Bryce wouldn't have made the decisions that caused the Halcyon incident. Ian wouldn't have requested me as his primary contact. He wouldn't have thought of me when he needed an architect for Garrison. So no, I probably wouldn't be leaving. Claire stared at me. So I created my own competitor. You created a situation where someone else recognized my value more clearly than you did. She didn't respond. I left Pointway in June. Garrison Analytics launched in September. The platform handled real-time data processing for 43 financial institutions within the first year. Ian and I built it exactly the way I'd wanted to build things at Pointway. Every decision documented. Every procedure tested. Every rollback automated. We never had a data incident. In December, Ian forwarded me an email. It was from Stephen Cho at Pointway. Stephen was asking if Garrison would be interested in a partnership. Pointway wanted to integrate with our financial data platform. Ian asked me what I thought. I replied. Tell him we can discuss it. But any integration will require a full technical review of their deployment procedures. I'll need to approve their runbook before we connect our systems. Ian laughed. You want them to submit to your technical authority? I want to make sure their deployment process won't cause data corruption that affects our clients. He sent the message. Stephen agreed to the technical review. I flew to Pointway's office in January. Claire was in the meeting. She walked me through their current deployment procedures. They'd implemented every recommendation from my incident review. Mandatory runbook adherence. Multi-approver requirements. Automated safeguards. I reviewed the documentation. It was thorough. Well-structured. Clearly influenced by the work I'd done. I approved the integration. After the meeting, Claire stopped me in the hallway. The procedures you recommended have prevented 4 incidents in the past 6 months. You were right about everything. I nodded. I know. She looked at me for a long moment. I should have trusted you. I thought bringing in someone with a bigger title would make the team stronger. I didn't realize I was replacing judgment with credentials. Credentials don't execute deployments. Procedures and knowledge do. I understand that now. I didn't say anything else. The integration launched in March. It worked flawlessly. Garrison grew. We raised a Series C in May. $120 million. Ian promoted me to VP of Engineering. I hired a team of 14 engineers. I trained them the same way I'd trained myself. Document everything. Test everything. Follow the procedures. We built systems that didn't fail. In August, I received a LinkedIn message from someone I didn't know. The name was unfamiliar, but the message referenced Pointway. Hi Alina, I'm a senior engineer at Pointway. I heard about what happened with the 4.2 release and the Halcyon incident. I just wanted to say that your incident report changed how we think about deployment authority here. Claire still references it in every major release planning meeting. You probably don't care, but I thought you should know that your work had lasting impact. I read the message twice. I didn't reply. But I saved it. Because that's what the CTO at Pointway had misunderstood. She thought authority came from titles and org charts. She thought trust was something you assigned with a checklist edit. She thought expertise could be replaced by bringing in someone new. But authority comes from being right when it matters. Trust comes from solving problems other people can't solve. Expertise comes from doing the work until you understand every edge case, every failure mode, every recovery path. Claire had removed me from the checklist because she trusted Bryce's resume more than my track record. Bryce had made decisions based on instinct instead of documentation. The system had failed because neither of them understood that infrastructure doesn't care about titles. It only cares about whether you know what you're doing. I knew what I was doing. That's why Ian called me when he needed an architect. That's why Garrison's platform never had a data incident. That's why Pointway had to implement my recommendations after I left. The checklist didn't matter. The work mattered. And the work always speaks for itself. Eventually.